Yo, 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 this is candibknittin. I'm Candy B. I be knitting. Last time we met, I kind of took you through a kind of like a download of everything I've been knitting on recently, where I'm at with all of my projects that are active projects. And this week I thought I would do the same, but for my spinning and for my fiber. And so I've gathered together here everything fiber related that I've been working on, and I can already tell just from like, oh, let me grab that, let me grab this, let me grab that, that I have more current spinning projects than I do knitting projects. And so we're gonna, same as last week, I'm just gonna start talking about what I got here and see how far we get in about 20 to 30 minutes, maybe 35 minutes, because that's just how long I like my episodes to be. And I think I'm gonna go in order from least mostly least processed to most processed. So this is the box I wanted to show y'all last week. We are in October. Some people do have October advent slash countdowns, but in general, going into this part of the year, a lot of people are excited about December advents, and those are just usually it's a mystery box of fiber yarn, and you open up every single day. It goes back to like Christmas, but a lot of people just do it unrelated to Christmas just because people like opening small packages of surprises every single day for whatever reason. And so I have not ordered any advents yarn or fiber related. I understand why they cost what they cost. You know, you're getting usually for a yarn advent 10 to 20 grams every single day for 25 days, and sometimes a big skein of yarn. Usually it's very carefully curated. You get stickers and mugs and little gifts inside of them. And then on the fiber side, you get 5 to 10 grams every day to spin, or you might get 4 bats for 4 weeks or what have you over the course of a month. I understand the effort that goes into it, and usually they run you about $250 to $300, and you have to pre-order it and make sure you get one, or there's only so many you can get. So I have a little bit of FOMO, but it's not something that I personally would spend that amount of money on to get something that I don't know really what I'm getting until I get it. Like, there's no unless there was like a dyer that I literally like trusted with my life. I'm like I know, I know whatever I open, I'm gonna love. All of that being said, last year I did little nuggets of Into the World pieces of like just millins that I got from them, and I did that kind of as an advent. Like every single day I would drop spindle a certain amount of fiber from a little grab bag. Also, last year I worked on a striped sweater and Knit Picks palette, and that was kind of advent adjacent, just pulling out random yarn and working with it every day. This year I've decided to make rolags, and making rolags is something that I've always wanted to do, and I'm trying to get my skills up. And rolags are just pieces of fiber, or a certain amount of fiber, usually carded out and then rolled up into a little bit of fiber, and then you draft from one into the other. And so this is a rolag. On the note of knowing why things cost what they cost, I actually have a hard time finding these from certain dyers, and when I do, it's usually much more expensive per gram to get them in this format, and that's because of the physical effort it takes to blend the colors and then roll up this piece of fiber. And so this box is indicative of me practicing that skill and doing it for myself. And so this is one of the early ones I made. It's a bit looser, a bit more fiber. I think this might be 20 grams of fiber, and I quickly realized that I probably want to stick more to the 5-10 gram range of fiber, because I did it on hand carders. Some people have big like blending boards where they can pack on more fiber, but I just had 2 little hand cards, and I was spinning it off or rolling it off the hand cards. And so this is probably more comparable to the amount of fiber I would want. And I learned a lot in this process. I learned, like I said, a little bit less fiber, probably. This one is also rolled rather loosely, which doesn't look as pretty as the ones like Hikari Handmaids, for instance, on Instagram. She makes like these really, really cute ones, and the color is always so pretty. And then she rolls them up like this, and they just look so adorable. But I was working on getting them a little bit tighter, and of course I had to, and I have 25 in this bucket here, and of course I had to give it a test drive. And this is a supported spindle I have from Hip Strings, and I found that the tighter it was rolled, the more compact it is, duh. And so I had to do that much more effort drafting it, and I do like a nice airy yarn. And so there is a balance there between getting it in that nice, neat little rolag shape and then having it be too tight and then fighting with it as you're on a supported spindle. Also, the impetus behind this is a lot of people said practicing the supported spindle, rolags are really good fiber prep for that. And I can see why they say that. And I just a little bit of yarn at a time. And this one is super duper tiny. And it's a skill I'm also trying to work on. And so I made these rolags with the intent to pick up my, or to improve my support spindle skills. And so I don't want to sit here struggling to, draft a rolag while I'm also struggling to spin a supported spindle. But this is just a little bit of that process. It's a worsted prep, and so not worsted, it's a woolen prep, and so as such it's a lot more airy, and it has that thick and thin quality. And I'm also not a super accomplished supported spindle spinner, and so it's gonna have that quality to it. But it's all for fun, and I figure this is a good time of year for that type of fun. The days are longer, it's a bit colder outside, got a lot of downtime, and like I said, everyone's gonna be opening up. Well, there's some people that have like their Halloween advent that they're opening now, and you get a little FOMO, like I said, so I have something to keep myself occupied. And these are the comb top that I got from RH Lindsay, and I have pounds and pounds of this, so I felt very comfortable just blending different colors and playing around with it. Which brings me to this bat that I made on my drum carder, and this is just, I ordered a pound of red, a pound of yellow, and a pound of blue with the intention of playing around with some optical dyeing, blending the different colors, seeing how red and blue beside each other can look like purple, how yellow and red beside each other can look orange, and how these colors kind of blend in together. And so this will be a very interesting experiment with rainbows and blending colors, which, hold on to the concept of rainbows. I'm going to show you the second bat, and then we'll get to the rainbow stuff. This is the other bat that I made. I had that cranberry colored tarhi that I got from RH Lindsay with some of the, it's not breed specific, it's just their what do they call it? I forget what they call it, but it's the wool pool. So they have all the wool that they get from the local farmers, and they mix it together based on the color. And this is all the taupe or brown wool that came together. So this is red and brown mixed together. And this is one of my, I wasn't crazy about the cranberry color of the tarhi, and so I figured bringing this brown in would just warm it up a little bit and give it an interesting effect and kind of like bring it down a little bit. And so that's that. So those are my two bats I made, my rolags I made. That's the fiber prep portion. What do I want to talk about next? Because now I'm thinking about that. I'm I'm going to go to my drop spindle next. Speaking of this taupe and red wool, I took just the taupe and ripped off a bit of it because, like I said, I have pounds of this stuff. And this is the taupe without the cranberry in it. And I started spinning it on the drop spindle just to kind of sample it and figure out what it might want it to be. And all it is a bunch of, they scour it and they put it through the carding machine and they send it out just like this. And so it's full of VM, vegetable matter. So it's got little sticks and stuff in it because it came off an animal. But I really don't mind it. And it's actually like feels very, I don't know. It's very nice. So I started spinning it on my drop spindle. And this is my 4th drop spindle. I have full of this taupe, just local farmer northeastern sheep. It's all the different sheep breeders that are in the Philadelphia, New Jersey area, up where R.H. Lindsay is based in Massachusetts. So, you know, imagine all the states that are around Massachusetts if you know American geography. And so I almost have 4 drop spindles full. These are all of my drop spindles. So once these are full, I'll wind them off, and I'm just gonna have little center pull cakes of yarn, and then I'm gonna do like a 3-ply to this, and I'm just gonna have a really nice farmy, sheepy, woolly yarn. They say that if you want like completely, like, you should go for the comb top if you don't want it to be have the VM in it, but I really don't mind it. It has like little neps in it and stuff. You can just tell that they just took all of this wool, washed it up, and they just blended it all together. So it has a lot of little neps in it, a lot of little bits of like, so there's some white in it because they just kind of eyeball what is kind of a browny color. And so, but if you look really close, there's a little bit of gray and there's a lot of different values in there. So it's going to have a lot of dimension to it. And it's pretty soft for like a not breed specific blend of wool that they just got from the local wool pool. And I think this is going to be a nice complementary color to some of the more obnoxious things I have in my collection. And yeah, if you want to see. Yeah, I just maybe 10-15 minutes in the evening, watching a little bit of TV, doing a little drop spindling. And you can also just kind of pick the grass and sticks out as you're spinning, and it gets broken up as you're winding the yarn and all stuff. So it doesn't really bother me that much. Speaking of center pull cakes in rainbows, that brings me to my next yarn situation or spinning situation. And this is going to be a fractal spin. So we're hitting all of the spinning vocabulary words. And this is Millens I got from someone off of Facebook. And I took Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, green, blue, indigo. I did do an indigo color, violet. And I did one long repeat of just, one sequence of the rainbow and one ball or one bobbin. And then I did 4 repeats of the rainbow on my second bobbin. And then I'm going to ply these, then I wind them off into center pull balls. And then I ply my yarn out of center pull balls. And so I'm going to end up with one strand is a long repeat, another strand is a short repeat. It turns into a fractal spin where you see the colors kind of slowly shifting into one another. And so this is blending up all the colors, mixing them side by side, and getting probably some new colors in there. In this method, you're going to see the individual colors and kind of just the effect they have by just being side by side. The yellow and red are going to stay yellow and red, but then when you look really, really close, you're going to see the yellow and red, and when you pull back, it's going to be okay. But then when the red's beside the purple, it looks a bit like this, or when the red is beside the blue, it looks kind of like this. And so that is these. And this is my first time intentionally. I've certainly done the same method before, but I haven't like pulled out my scale and counted the repeats. And so this is the most effort I've ever put into this method before. And so you can probably guess the phase that I'm in is just trying to take myself to the next level, learn a little bit more, push myself a little bit further than just being like, I'll just spin and see what I get. And now I'm like intentionally thinking about the different things I can do. The idea of this is going to be some sort of color work, and there's a lot of patterns out there. Andrea Mowry has a lot of them, especially using the what is that yarn called? Every time I have to think of it, I blank on it, but y'all know what yarn I'm thinking of. Spin cycle, where you have color work, but the color work is actually shifting in color as you're knitting. And there's tons of color work patterns like that. Andrea Mowry has a lot of mosaic knitting patterns like that. Jen Geigley just came out with this striped sweater that's inspired by the Gap from the 90s. And she's thinking about doing some sweaters inspired by the Delia's catalog. And if you know, you know. I can't explain it to you if you're, if you didn't come of age during that time. But there is a sweater from the Delia's catalog, which I also believe appeared in an episode of Gilmore Girls. I'm sure the millennials will correct me if I'm wrong. But it had rainbow stripes, and it was on a dark blue, like a royal blue shirt or sweater that had rainbow stripes right here. And so I'm imagining something of that effect, because I have a lot of royal blue, and I think that would be a good complement to, because this rainbow has sky blue as the blue, and so I think that's what's going to really set it off. More to come. The next yarn I want to show y'all, I'm dropping stuff, is actually still on the bobbin, and I just finished plying this. This is some Navajo churro, and this isn't a particular brand or anything. I just got this in a braid, and this is a 2-ply. And if y'all remember, I'm working on that hand spun striped sweater, and this was my backup gray if I run out of my gray Gotland I'm using for that sweater. So I just did a small bit. A lot of people would say this is a 4-ounce bobbin, so this is probably a good 2.5 ounces of yarn here, which is a generous sampling of yarn, but I just needed to spin some up to see what it was going to look like compared to the Gotland, to see if it was going to work with my project. Color-wise, it's definitely going to work. Texture-wise, it is notably different, which is why I'm like, if I do use this, I'll use it on like cuffs and the ribbing on the bottom of the sweater. The big difference here being this Navajo churro, there's a lot of like guard hairs in it, and so it has this halo effect to it, and it's got quite a prickle to it. The Gotland is not as prickly as this, which I assume is the guard hairs, and once I wash it, I think it'll soften up a bit, which is another reason that I probably should use it for just cuffs and the ribbing on the bottom. But the way I'm making this sweater, my intention is to wear something underneath it, so it's not really going to touch my skin. But just for your own edification, this is that raw Navajo churro, and even in the ball form, you can tell how you have like these really straight, coarse hairs coming off of this. It's a very rustic yarn, but the minute I heard that there was a sheep breed with the name churro in it, I was just like, I need some of that yarn. So I've been on the lookout, and I really wanted to spin some up. Not a lot of crimp, very, very kind of just straight and wispy, which reminded me of the Gotland, and so that's why I thought it would work well with the Gotland beyond just the color of it. And so I did. It is technically comb top, which is a worsted prep, meaning all of the fibers are combed and going the exact same direction, but I did end up doing a long draw technique with it, which is considered more of a woolen prep for spinning, because like literally it was just slipping out of my hands, because you see how like straight the hair is, and so as I was spinning, it was just falling apart. And so I kind of had to like put a little bit of twist in it and do more of a long draw method to kind of keep it together, because it really wanted to fall apart on me. So got plenty of that left over, and I might not even have to dig into this. And what I did with this is a 2-ply, which you probably can't even tell just by the fuzziness. You don't get a lot of definition between the plies. And I just did a center pull ball, and then I plied from one ply is the center of the ball, one ply is the outside of the ball. So I ended up using all of the yarn with none left. I have also gotten some advice from Facebook. I'm in a spinning group on Facebook, and one of the people in Facebook, because I've been not happy with my plying. Like, I'm just like, it just feels like I spent all of this time, carefully, spinning across the top or spinning a fractal. I put a lot of thought into my plies, my individual plies, and then when it comes to plying them together, I kind of just have like this auto setting on my wheel, and I just kind of blow through it and just finish it up and try to rush through it. And someone on Facebook said they were actually not talking to me, they were talking to someone else, and I was reading their advice, and they said people ply way too fast. Because if you think about it, or at least while I'm spinning, and I was talking about that Navajo churro falling apart on me, I am trying to keep my rhythm. I'm trying to keep everything together. I'm thinking about my technique. I'm maybe pulling back out and correcting mistakes, or pulling out neps, or, getting interrupted. And so in general, spinning the individual ply does take longer than plying. And so he was just like, you're plying, think about how much time it took you, how much time it takes you to spin an individual ply is in direct relationship to how much twist you're getting into that yarn. And so I did really practice going much, much slower plying this. That's the very long story short. And I feel like I'm getting a much better product, or at least I feel like I'm getting a much better product. And it feels like my twist angle is coming together. I was having like trouble where like one ply just wraps around the other, and I want them to kind of come together at a perfect angle. And that is much more achievable if you go a little bit slower, which, as someone who's been spinning for 2 years, that's been a struggle for me, because I'm just like, I get on it, someone gives you a pedal, you just want to go, and that's not always the answer. And also, the slower you pedal, the more muscle that takes to kind of slow down your motion and put a little bit more intention into one's movement. So maybe that'll help you too. I don't know. Last but not least, I want to show y'all actual finished yarn that I have, because I've been holding on to this for a very long time. It was actually the last yarn that was on my drop spindles. It was on my drop spindles forever. Then I caked it up, and it set forever in cakes, and I finally spun these up. And this is Green Goat Ranch's Animal Crossing carding kit, Rambouillet wool, faux cashmere, and bamboo. And Sarah at Green Goat Farm, she sells these carding kits that come with one big braid of fiber and then little bits of, in this case it was bamboo and faux cashmere. And the idea being that you can put it on your blending board. I put it on my drum carder, and I just made a really big bat. And I made this yarn. This is from the Animal Crossing collection. So this is inspired by my fave, meringue. And so if you look really close at this, you'll see little bits of orange, little bits of green, little bits of white, and mostly pink. And that's that. And I tried that technique of spinning really slow, plying very slowly with this. And I think that did the trick, because with that faux bamboo, or the bamboo and the faux cashmere in this, it gets a bit slippery, and it's a little bit harder to, by far the easiest thing for me is like a really sheepy wool. When I start to get into like silks and anything that's not animal fiber, things get really tricky. And so I'm pretty happy with this. This has not been washed yet. I'll put it in hot water. Water comes to room temperature. I'll just give it a nice little snap and then I'll be done with this. And I don't know if you can tell from your homes or wherever you're watching this from, but this has a ton of drape in it. And so, and it's also fairly thin and much thinner. And that's the other danger of having things sit forever. My spinning has actually changed a lot. And so I have, what is the guy from, there's another Animal Crossing character, and I meant for this to go with that, but this is spun so much thinner because I think it's because my drop spindle spins so much faster and the other one was spun on the wheel. And so I think I'm just going to use this alongside a commercial yarn in maybe one color work section of a shawl, just because that drape is really, really nice. And so that's that. Probably heavy fingering to light DK, which is becoming more and more my default. Yeah, mostly DK-ish is my sweet spot, and then depending on what type of how many plies I do, what kind of mood I'm in, what the material is, and just time. Over time, my spinning has gotten thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. So certainly my first yarn is much thicker than my last yarn. And then obviously you can control that with how many plies you decide to create out of that yarn. But I think this is going to be, this whole set was 1.5 ounces. So this is obviously not a sweater quantity, but one little triangle in a bigger shawl, or a nice, like, what is it? Not the sewn on bind. What is, I forget what it is, but there's a shawl that I made where you create this lace border as you're binding off, and that would be really cute for that. I think it was about 200 yards. When I just counted it on my nitty notty, just wrapped it around my nitty notty and counted, and it was about maybe 180 to 200 yards. But obviously, I would wash this and finish it before I measured yardage. There is one more. I was like, oh, I made it through everything. There's one more thing I want to show y'all, and then I'm gonna get out of your faces. This white bucket here is where my electric eel wheel lives, and his name is William December Williams, and here he is. And I've been spinning with him for a while, so I just wanted to give y'all a little update about what I think of the eel wheel spinner, just based on actually having used it. I think the first time I showed y'all, I literally had just put it together and started spinning. I'm still enjoying it. I remember I told y'all that I was just using it. I just wanted it for plying, but then upon using it and seeing like how thin the yarn I'm getting with it, I kind of want to use it just kind of for special projects where I want that thin a yarn. And so far I've done these 2 sparkly millins that I had in my stash, and then I have this little bit of blue, and I think I'm just gonna see how far I can get doing a 3-ply with these 3 things together. This one's this might have been, no, this was the first one I did, and this is the second one. So this one, I got a little bit more air into this one. I still am enjoying it. I've gotten used to the noise. At first the motor was a little bit bothersome to me. Like I could hear the electricity running through it. Still enjoying it. Like I said, kind of pivoting towards trying to figure out which projects would be best for it. But, you see I have a Asher traditional, big body, traditional spinning wheel. I got my drop spindles, and now I have an electric wheel. And so just kind of thinking about which projects are best suited to each one. The other thing that made it difficult to ply, and the one critique I have, these yarn guides that are on it, that you actually loop your yarn through. I tried to ply on it, but they're quite thin, and they're kind of just wire wrapped around itself, so things were getting snagged. And I thought I would just kind of power through it, but I have since, and I will let y'all know when they get here, and I will tell y'all the company and let you know what I think when they get here. But I've ordered some 3D printed yarn guides, so they're going to be like just smooth plastic that slide onto here, and I'm probably just going to end up chucking these. And I was trying to think of like maybe like a at-home solution I could do, or maybe I could make something myself, because I didn't really want to pay they're not terribly expensive. I think I paid like $6 to $12 for replacements, but then I have to pay shipping on top of that, and it feels it's hard for me psychologically to justify paying more for shipping than I am for the item that I'm getting, and also the idea of shipping something that small from another state to my house is kind of difficult for me to make peace with, but it was getting very irksome for me, and I really want this to work. And it's, if there's something that's stopping you from using something, then you probably should do something about it. And so it would be like every time I would start, I'm like, oh, I do really want to do something about it. I really should do something about it. And so it got to the point where it's like, this thing is going to sit and collect dust if I don't invest in making it work for me. And then maybe once I could put those new yarn guides on it, I'll try the plying again, and maybe it'll be less cumbersome, because one thin ply going through there is one thing, and sometimes even the one ply gets caught up in it, but three plies of like a fuzzy yarn like that Navajo churro I showed you, that's going to be a problem. The other thing I thought of as I was using this, and it's like the pettiest thing, but I just wanted to be like completely transparent, because I know that I said like I was like, pretty much raving about this thing. So it's not like I hated it or nothing, but something to keep in mind is I find it hard for the uptake to start on it. And I did have to look up some YouTube videos, and the resounding advice was to just tape your leader to the bobbin, which just seemed kind of strange to me. And that was another reason I really wasn't able to ply the way I wanted to. It was like, I just could not get the plies to uptake and to wrap it. And so like, it's almost like when I start a new spin, whether it be applying or I'm doing a single, I have to like almost like load it on there and get it going. And then once I'm going, I'm good. But it's just something I thought I would mention, just so you're not like, well, Candy B said this thing was awesome and amazing and perfect, and she didn't mention this. Well, I'm mentioning that now. But obviously I'm having a good time. I'm still spinning with it. And that's that. Last, but I know I went from least finish to most finish, and now I'm going to go to like the leastest finish. This is the final thing I want to show y'all. This is that 1 pound of that rust color that I got from RH Lindsay. And so this is going to be my next big project. So that's why I'm trying to get all of this stuff off of wheels and bobbins and ply it all, so I can just concentrate on doing a sweater spin with this. And I'm super excited, because this is like one of my bucket list level knitting projects. This is going to be a Vintersol by, Jen Steingass. The Vintersol, which you may recognize as a sweater that appeared on a little show called Call the Midwife, which is one of my favorite shows, and it was worn by one of my favorite characters. So if you know, you know. And so it's been my dream to kind of recreate that sweater. Cyril is the character, and he wears, in my mind, I was just like, oh, I'm going to have this beautiful, warm, rusty orange. It's going to be so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And I picked out the color I wanted, and then I went to Google to remind myself of the sweater he wears, and his is actually bright orange. And I was just like, I do not want a bright orange one. I really want this rust color. So it's going to be Cyril-esque inspired, but in colors that I feel are more complementary to my aesthetic. And so that's the big plan after I do all these little small projects here and there, and then I probably over winter break really concentrate on that. I'll probably still keep my spindle spinning going, but once this stuff comes off the spindle, I usually ply it on my wheel. And so just kind of managing everything. I have 4 bobbins for my Ashford Traditional, which is more than enough bobbins for me, because I ply everything off of center pull balls, but just managing the flow of all of that when my mind is like, oh, and then I can do this, and then I can do this, and then I can make bats, and then I can do that. Just making sure everything is flowing and then washing it all and then finding a place to put a bunch of wet yarn. Good times. On that note, I feel like I've talked enough. We're probably around 35 to 40 minutes. I've gotten much better with my internal clock of knowing how long I go with these, and that's when I start to kind of get tired and feel like I'm rambling, and this is the best place as any to stop talking. But if you want to continue the conversation, please do so. I've gotten so many really great comments, so much really great conversation, so much really great feedback from y'all. Please comment below. Or you can send me an email, candibknittin@gmail.com, or come to the Instagram and you can see the Instagram stories as I'm actually working through all of these things. And I'm at Rulude on Instagram. I'm also at Rulude on the Ko-fi. That's all the things. Yeah. And subscribe to the channel so you can like actually, someone was like, oh, I can't ever find knitting channels that I really like because they don't have a YouTube username. They just kind of go on YouTube without logging in. Go ahead and log in and subscribe, and then that way you can get suggestions based on the stuff that you really like, so they're just not pushing the same stuff to you all the time. It doesn't have to be just me. Any of the people that you really like, comment on their videos, thumbs up their videos, subscribe to their videos, so you can tell the algorithm exactly what you're looking for. Until next time,